The pink and blue balloons bobbed against our living room ceiling like guilty secrets waiting to drop. I stood in the corner, nursing a lukewarm beer and watching my wife Ayla orchestrate what she called the most important moment of our lives. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Kai, honey, come here." Ayla's voice cut through the chatter of our 30-something neighbors, all gathered in our suburban Austin home for what they believed would be a joyous gender reveal. Her smile was perfect, the same one she'd practiced in our bathroom mirror for the past week, the same one she'd worn when she told me about her work trips to Dallas. I pushed off from the wall, my home automation business having taught me patience with complex systems. People, I'd learned, were just more complicated circuits, and right now, I was about to flip the main breaker. "Everyone! Everyone!" Ayla tapped her champagne flute with a fork, the crystals singing out over the crowd. Our daughter Emma, 6 years old and sharp as a tack, sat cross-legged on the carpet, watching everything with those observant eyes that missed nothing. "Before we find out if Emma's getting a little brother or sister, I want to say something special." The room quieted. Cassie, Ayla's sister, beamed from her spot near the kitchen island, phone already recording. Connor Blackwell lurked by the back door, his gym-sculpted frame filling out a polo shirt that probably cost more than most people's car payments. He wasn't supposed to be here. Ayla had mentioned him as a last-minute ad from her PR agency. Funny how work friends always seem to show up at family events these days. "Kai's been such an amazing husband and father," Ayla continued, her voice carrying that practiced warmth she used for client presentations. "And now, with baby number 2 on the way, I just want everyone to know how lucky I am." She handed me the microphone, her fingers lingering on mine just a moment too long. "Daddy," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "guess who we're having?" The crowd chuckled. Someone called out, "Boy!" Another voice shouted, "Girl!" Emma giggled and clapped her hands. Even Connor smiled, though his expression looked more like a grimace. I took the microphone, feeling its weight. 20 years in the military before starting my business had taught me about timing, about patience, about gathering intelligence before striking. "Well," I said, my voice steady as I looked around the room at all these people, neighbors, friends, family, who'd gathered to celebrate what they thought was a happy moment. "Before we guess what we're having, let's play a different guessing game first." Ayla's smile flickered, just for a second, but I caught it. "Let's better guess who the real father is." The room went silent. Not the comfortable quiet of anticipation, but the heavy, suffocating silence that follows a car crash. Emma looked up at me with confusion. Cassie's phone wavered in her hand. Connor had gone very still by the door. "Kai," Ayla whispered, but I was already moving toward the dessert table. I pulled out a sealed envelope from my jacket pocket, the one that had been burning a hole there for 3 days. The lab's logo was clearly visible, Austin Genetics and Paternity Services. "This came back Thursday," I announced, placing it on the table next to Ayla's carefully arranged cupcakes. "Prenatal DNA test, accession number 2024 AG7739. Anyone want to guess what it says?" The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. I could hear Mrs. Peterson from next door shifting uncomfortably in her chair. Someone's stomach gurgled. Emma had stopped clapping. "Kai, please," Ayla said, reaching for the envelope, but I was faster. "Oh, I think everyone deserves to know," I said, opening it with deliberate slowness. "After all, this is a guessing game, right?" Cassie finally found her voice. "This is inappropriate. Whatever marital issues you two are having." "Marital issues?" I looked at her, then at Connor, then back at the paper in my hands. "Is that what we're calling it?" I pulled out my phone and connected it to our smart TV, one of the perks of running a home automation company. The DNA report filled the 75-inch screen in crisp, undeniable detail. "Probability of paternity," I read aloud, my voice carrying to every corner of the suddenly cramped living room. 0%. test conducted on maternal sample collected November 15th, and comparison sample provided by Kai Dornell. Collection date corresponds to... I paused, checking my phone's calendar app. Ayla's business trip to Dallas. Interesting timing. The room erupted, not in celebration, but in the kind of uncomfortable murmuring that happens when people witness something they wish they hadn't. Mrs. Peterson actually gasped. Someone near the kitchen whispered, "Oh my God!" "You manipulated this somehow," Ayla said, her PR training kicking in as she tried to regain control. "This is fake. He's having some kind of breakdown." I reached into my other pocket and pulled out a folder. Chain of custody documentation, receipt from the clinic, and I scrolled through my phone, finding the screenshots I'd saved. Text messages between you and Connor, coordinating your appointment schedules. Connor finally moved, pushing off from the wall. "Look, man, I think maybe we should what?" I turned to face him directly. Should pretend this isn't happening? Should let everyone keep guessing about baby names while you and my wife plan your future together? The pink and blue balloons above us suddenly seemed obscene. All this decoration for a lie. All these people gathered to celebrate something that was never mine to begin with. Emma stood up, her small voice cutting through the adult tension. "Daddy, I don't understand what's happening." That broke something in me. Not my resolve. I'd made my peace with this moment days ago when the results came back. But seeing my daughter's confused face reminded me why I'd chosen this path instead of slinking away quietly. "I know, sweetheart," I said, kneeling down to her level. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and those mistakes have consequences." I stood back up, addressing the room one final time. "The party's over, the guessing game is finished, and as for who the real father is..." I looked directly at Connor, who'd gone pale under his gym tan. "I think we all know now." Ayla grabbed my arm. "We need to talk. Privately." "Oh, we'll talk," I said, gently removing her hand. "Through lawyers. I filed the petition tonight before the party. Funny thing about having attorney friends, they work weekends when the situation calls for it." The crowd was already moving, people gathering purses and making excuses, avoiding eye contact as they shuffled toward the door. The party that was supposed to celebrate new life had instead witnessed the demolition of an old one. "You'll regret this," Ayla whispered as guests filed past us. "You have no idea what you've just done." I looked around at the remnants of our perfectly planned deception, the balloons, the cupcakes, the decorations for a future that was never going to happen. "I know exactly what I've done," I said. I stopped guessing and started knowing. As the last guest left and Connor slipped out without a word, I began taking down the decorations. Emma helped, though she still looked confused. Ayla stood frozen in the middle of our living room, surrounded by the wreckage of her carefully constructed lies. The gender reveal was over, but something told me the real show was just beginning. The next morning brought a flood of text messages. Word travels fast in suburban Austin, especially when it involves public humiliation and DNA tests. I scrolled through them while making Emma's breakfast, each notification another confirmation that yesterday's party would be neighborhood legend for years to come. "Dad, why did Mom sleep in the guest room?" Emma asked, poking at her scrambled eggs. "Sometimes adults need space to think," I said, which was true enough. Ayla had locked herself away after the guests left, emerging only to pace the kitchen at midnight, whispering frantically into her phone. My phone buzzed. Mike Torres, my business partner and former Army buddy. "Dude, Janet heard from her sister who heard from Mrs. Peterson. Is this for real?" Another message, this one from Emma's teacher. "Hi, Mr. Dornell. I wanted to reach out after hearing some concerning rumors. Is everything okay with Emma?" And then one that made my stomach twist. "Kai, this is Connor. We need to talk. What happened yesterday was a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding, like accidentally ordering the wrong coffee or missing a turn on the highway. not carrying on an affair with another man's wife and getting her pregnant. Daddy, Emma was watching me with those sharp eyes. Are you and Mommy getting divorced like Tommy's parents? I set down my phone and sat across from her at our kitchen island. I don't know yet, sweetheart, but whatever happens, you'll always be my daughter, and I'll always love you. She nodded solemnly, then went back to her eggs. Kids adapted faster than adults, I'd noticed. They accepted new realities without the baggage of expectations and broken promises. Footsteps on the stairs announced Ayla's arrival. She appeared in the doorway wearing yesterday's clothes and an expression I'd never seen before, part desperation, part calculation. Her usually perfect hair hung limp around her shoulders. Emma, go get ready for school, she said without looking at me. But I'm not finished eating. Now, Emma. Our daughter slid off her stool and headed upstairs, casting worried glances back at us. Once she was gone, Ayla moved to the coffee maker, her movements sharp and precise. You've destroyed everything, she said, not turning around. Our marriage, our family, our reputation, for what? Some twisted sense of justice? I destroyed everything? I leaned back in my chair, genuinely amazed. Ayla, you've been having an affair. You're carrying another man's baby. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. She whirled around, coffee mug clutched in her hands like a weapon. You humiliated me in front of our friends, our neighbors. You turned what should have been a private matter into a public spectacle. A private matter? I stood up, my own anger finally breaking through the calm I'd maintained since yesterday. You invited Connor to our gender reveal party. You made me stand there and play daddy to another man's child in front of everyone we know, but somehow I'm the one who made it public? Connor is a friend from work. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. I have the text messages, remember? The ones where you two coordinate your schedules, plan your meetings, discuss hotel rooms. I have pictures of his car in our driveway when I was supposed to be out of town. I have credit card receipts from restaurants where you told me you were working late. Her face went through several emotions: denial, anger, fear, and finally something like resignation. How long have you known? 6 weeks. I poured myself coffee, needing something to do with my hands. Ever since you came home from that Dallas trip with a hickey, you tried to cover with makeup, remember? You said you'd bumped into a door. Why didn't you say something then? Because I wanted to be sure. Because I hoped I was wrong. Because I thought maybe we could work it out. I met her eyes. But then you announced the pregnancy, and I realized how deep this went. She sat down heavily at the island, suddenly looking older than her 34 years. The baby, it might still be yours. These tests aren't always accurate. Ayla. My voice was gentle but firm. The test is conclusive. 0% probability. And even if it wasn't, the timeline doesn't work. We haven't been intimate in 3 months. You know it, and I know it. The silence stretched between us, filled with the weight of everything we'd lost and everything we'd never really had. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Peterson's dog barking and the distant hum of traffic on the main road. What happens now? She asked finally. Now you figure out your next move. I've already filed for divorce and requested full custody of Emma. I've moved half our joint assets into a separate account, legally, before you ask. And I've scheduled a meeting with my attorney for this afternoon. You can't take Emma away from me. I'm not taking her away, but I'm not going to let you use her as a bargaining chip either. I finished my coffee and rinsed the mug. I'm moving out this weekend. Emma can stay here until we figure out the custody arrangement. Where will you go? Mike's offered me his guest house until I find something permanent. She looked around our kitchen, the granite countertops we'd picked out together, the custom cabinets I'd installed myself, the family photos on the refrigerator. This is our home, Kai. We built this together. No, I said quietly. I built this. You just lived in it while you figured out what you really wanted. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize, but the message made my pulse quicken. "This is Cassie. We need to meet. There are things you don't understand about the situation." I showed Ayla the screen. "Your sister wants to chat." "Don't trust her," Ayla said quickly. "She's protective of me, and she'll say anything to—" "To what? Tell me more lies?" I grabbed my keys from the counter. "I'm taking Emma to school, then going to the office. When I get back tonight, I want Connor's things out of my house." "His things?" "The extra toothbrush in the guest bathroom, the protein powder in the pantry, the workout clothes in the laundry room." I paused at the doorway. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice?" Her face crumpled, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Emma," I called upstairs, "time for school!" As we drove away from the house, Emma chattering about her upcoming science project, I caught a glimpse of Ayla in the rearview mirror. She stood in our doorway, still in yesterday's clothes, watching us leave. She looked small and lost, like someone who'd just realized the game was over and she'd been playing by the wrong rules all along. My phone buzzed with another text from Connor. "Kai, please, let me explain. It's not what you think." I deleted it without responding. I'd heard enough explanations to last a lifetime. Now, it was time for consequences. Cassie chose neutral ground for our meeting, a coffee shop downtown where the ambient noise would cover our conversation and the public setting would keep things civil. At least, that's what she probably thought. She didn't know me as well as she believed. I arrived 15 minutes early and claimed a corner table with a clear view of the entrance. Old habits from my military days: always know your exits, always see who's coming. Cassie walked in exactly on time, her designer heels clicking against the polished concrete floor. She'd inherited the same sharp features as Ayla, but where my wife used her looks for charm, Cassie wielded hers like a weapon. "Thank you for coming," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. She'd ordered something complicated with extra foam, the kind of drink that took 5 minutes to make and cost more than a decent lunch. "Your message said there were things I didn't understand. I'm listening." She studied me over her coffee cup, probably trying to gauge how much damage control was possible. "You've known Ayla for 8 years, Kai. You married her, built a life with her, had a child with her. Do you really think she's the villain you're making her out to be?" "I think she's a woman who's been lying to me for months while carrying another man's baby. What I make of that is pretty straightforward. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple." I leaned forward. "Cassie, I have documentation, photos, text messages, credit card statements, hotel receipts. Your sister has been having an affair with Connor Blackwell for at least 6 months. She's pregnant with his child. These aren't opinions or interpretations. They're facts." Cassie's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the flush creeping up her neck. "People make mistakes, Kai. Marriage is complicated. You can't just throw away 8 years because what? Because I found out my wife's been lying to me? Because I discovered the baby she's carrying isn't mine? Because she's been bringing her boyfriend to family events?" I kept my voice level, but something in my tone made her lean back. "Tell me, Cassie, how long have you known?" The question caught her off guard. "Known what?" "About the affair, about Connor, about the baby." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a screenshot. "This is a text from you to Ayla, dated 3 weeks ago. Did you tell Connor about the appointment? You can't keep hiding this forever. Want to explain what appointment you were referring to?" Her face went pale under her foundation. "You're monitoring her phone?" "I'm protecting myself from further lies. Answer the question." She set down her cup with shaking hands. "You're taking that out of context. It could mean anything." "Could it? Because I have 17 more messages between you two discussing Connor, the pregnancy, and how to handle what you called the Kai problem. That's me, by the way. I'm the problem in this scenario." The coffee shop buzzed around us, Laptops clicking, conversations flowing, the espresso machine hissing. Normal people living normal lives, unaware they were witnessing a family implode in real time. "Ayla loves you," Cassie said finally. "She made a mistake, yes, but she loves you and Emma. This thing with Connor, it's not serious, it's just physical. Just physical." I repeated the words, tasting their absurdity. "She's having his baby, Cassie. How much more physical does it get?" The baby was an accident. Birth control fails sometimes. Birth control fails when you're using it. According to her medical records, which I now have legal access to thanks to the paternity case, Ayla stopped taking her pills 4 months ago. This baby wasn't an accident. It was a choice. Cassie stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You got her medical records?" Amazing what a good attorney can accomplish when someone's been committing paternity fraud. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? Did you think I'd just quietly accept being deceived and move on? You're being vindictive. I'm being thorough. I finished my coffee and stood up. This conversation is over. Tell your sister that if she wants to communicate with me, she can do it through lawyers. Wait. Cassie grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. There's something else. Something you need to know about Connor. I paused, curious despite myself. What about him? He's not a good person, Kai. Ayla thinks she knows him, but she doesn't. There are things about his past, about other women. Are you seriously trying to warn me about the man your sister's been having an affair with? The one carrying his baby? I'm trying to protect her, and you, and Emma. Cassie's grip tightened on my arm. Connor has a pattern. He targets married women, gets them emotionally invested, then moves on when things get complicated. Ayla thinks he's going to leave his wife for her, but he won't. He's done this before. I gently removed her hand from my arm. Then maybe you should be having this conversation with your sister, instead of with me. She won't listen. She's convinced herself that what she has with Connor is real, that it's worth destroying her marriage over. But when he abandons her, and he will, she'll have nothing. No husband, no home, no support system. That's not my problem anymore. Emma is your daughter. When Ayla's life falls apart, it affects Emma too. That stopped me cold. She was right, and she knew it. Whatever happened between Ayla and me, Emma would be caught in the aftermath. What are you suggesting? Help me convince Ayla to end it with Connor. Give her a chance to fix this before it's too late. I studied Cassie's face, looking for the angle, the manipulation. But all I saw was genuine fear, for her sister, for the situation spinning out of control. You want me to take back a woman who's been lying to me for months, who's carrying another man's child, who brought her boyfriend to our family events? I shook my head. Even if I wanted to, which I don't, it's too late. The papers are filed. The DNA test is public record. Half the neighborhood was there when I revealed the truth. People forget. Scandals fade. You could move, start over. I'm not the one who needs to start over, Cassie. I'm not the one who destroyed my marriage for a gym owner with commitment issues. I picked up my keys. Your sister made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. As I walked away, I heard Cassie call after me. When this all falls apart, don't say I didn't warn you. I didn't turn around, but her words followed me out to the parking lot. Not because I cared about Ayla's future with Connor, but because she was right about one thing. Emma would be affected by whatever came next. My phone buzzed with a text from Mike. Heard through the grapevine that Connor's been asking questions about you around town. Might want to watch your back. I stared at the message, feeling the first stirring of something that wasn't quite anger, but wasn't quite amusement either. Connor was asking questions about me? That was interesting. Most men who'd been caught in affairs tried to disappear quietly, not investigate the husband they'd wronged. Maybe it was time I started asking some questions of my own. Mike's bar occupied a converted warehouse in East Austin The kind of place where craft beer met honest conversation and nobody asked too many questions about your personal life. I found him restocking the cooler behind the bar, his movements efficient despite the prosthetic leg he'd worn since an IED took the original in Afghanistan. "You look like hell," he said without turning around. "Thanks. I feel worse." I settled onto a bar stool and accepted the beer he slid across the polished wood. "Tell me about Connor asking questions." Mike straightened, his expression serious. "Jenny Morrison came in Tuesday night. You know Jenny, works at the bank downtown, handles commercial loans. She mentioned that Connor Blackwell had been in, asking about your business accounts, your property holdings, stuff like that. He can't access any of that information." "No, but he was fishing, asking casual questions, trying to seem friendly. Jenny got the impression he was sizing you up financially." I took a long pull of beer, processing this information. Why would he care about my finances? Maybe he's trying to figure out what kind of settlement Ayla might get in the divorce, or maybe he wants to know if you're worth worrying about. Mike leaned against the bar, his voice dropping. Or maybe he's planning something and wants to know what resources you have to fight back. The last possibility sent a chill down my spine. I'd assumed Connor would want to lay low after being exposed so publicly. Men like him usually preferred operating in shadows, not confronting their victims directly. "There's more," Mike continued. "Tom Bradley was in yesterday. You remember Tom? Works security at the gym complex where Connor's place is located. He said Connor's been having a lot of late-night meetings lately, cars coming and going after hours, people Tom doesn't recognize." "What kind of people?" "The kind that make Tom nervous, and Tom doesn't scare easy." I stared into my beer, connecting dots I didn't like the pattern of. "You think he's in some kind of trouble?" "I think a guy who seduces married women and gets them pregnant probably has other questionable judgment, and I think you embarrassed him publicly, which means he's got motivation to make your life difficult." My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. "Kai, this is Jessica Hartwell. I used to date Connor. We need to talk." I showed the message to Mike, who whistled low. "When it rains, it pours." "You know her?" "Know of her. She was Connor's girlfriend before he started sniffing around your wife. Pretty girl, worked as a trainer at his gym until things went south between them." Mike refilled my beer. "Word is, she didn't take the breakup well." I stared at the message, weighing my options. Meeting with Connor's ex-girlfriend felt like stepping into deeper waters, but the alternative was operating blind while he apparently gathered intelligence on me. "I need to call Emma," I said, checking the time. "She gets out of school in an hour." "How's she handling all this?" "Better than the adults, honestly. Kids are resilient." I paused. "It's the long-term stuff I worry about. What happens when the other kids at school hear about it? When their parents start talking?" "Kids hear everything eventually. Better she hears the truth from you than lies from someone else." My phone rang. Ayla's number. I let it go to voicemail, then played the message on speaker. "Kai, we need to talk about Emma's schedule. I know you're angry with me, but she needs stability right now. Call me back." Mike raised an eyebrow. "Stability? That's rich coming from someone who brought her boyfriend to family events." I typed a response to Jessica. "When and where?" Her reply came immediately. "Tonight, 7 p.m., Moonshine Grill on South Lamar. I'll be in the back booth wearing a red jacket." "You're really going to meet her?" Mike asked. "Information is power. Right now, Connor knows more about my situation than I know about his. That needs to change." "Want backup? I can close early. Tag along for moral support." "Thanks, but this feels like something I need to handle alone." I finished my beer and stood up. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? I'm already getting divorced. My wife's pregnant with another man's baby, and apparently my daughter's stepfather-to-be is some kind of small-time criminal. How much worse can it get? Mike's expression suggested he could think of several ways, but he kept his thoughts to himself. I drove to Emma's school, arriving early enough to watch the other parents gathering for pickup. A few nodded politely, but I caught several whispered conversations and sideways glances. Word had definitely spread beyond our immediate neighborhood. Emma bounced out of the building with her usual energy, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. "Dad, guess what we learned about today?" "What's that, sweetheart?" "Butterflies. Did you know they taste with their feet?" "I did not know that." I helped her into the car, grateful for her innocence, for the way she could find wonder in simple facts while the adult world crumbled around her. "Can we get ice cream?" "Sure." Anything to postpone the conversation I knew was coming. The questions about why Mommy had been crying this morning, why Daddy was staying at Uncle Mike's house, why the neighbors looked at them strangely. As we drove to the ice cream shop, Emma chattering about her day, I thought about Jessica Hartwell and whatever information she wanted to share. In my experience, ex-girlfriends rarely reached out to offer friendly advice. They usually wanted something: revenge, closure, or leverage. Tonight, I'd find out which one Jessica was after. Moonshine Grill buzzed with the dinner crowd, servers weaving between tables laden with barbecue and craft cocktails. I spotted Jessica immediately, red jacket as promised, sitting alone in a corner booth with clear sight lines to both entrances. Smart positioning for someone who might be nervous about the conversation ahead. She was prettier than I'd expected, with auburn hair and intelligent green eyes that tracked my approach. Mid-20s, I guessed, with the kind of athletic build that came from actual fitness rather than cosmetic gym routines. "Kai?" She stood as I approached, extending a hand. "Thank you for meeting me. I wasn't sure you'd come." Curiosity got the better of me. I slid into the booth across from her. "You said you used to date Connor." "For 8 months, until I discovered I wasn't his only girlfriend." She signaled the waitress for another drink. "I heard about what happened at your party. The whole gym's talking about it." "I bet they are. Connor's telling people you faked the DNA test, that you're having some kind of mental breakdown and trying to frame him." I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo of the lab results. Hard to fake a court-ordered paternity test with chain of custody documentation. She studied the image, her expression darkening. He really did it. He really got her pregnant. "You sound surprised." "Not surprised exactly, more like confirmed." She accepted a fresh martini from the waitress and took a careful sip. "Connor has a pattern with married women. He targets them specifically, something about the thrill of the forbidden, the challenge of breaking up marriages." "How many?" "That I know of? Your wife makes 4 in the past 2 years. There might be others." The number hit me like a physical blow. 4 marriages, 4 families destroyed for Connor's entertainment. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he destroyed my life, and I want to return the favor." Her voice carried an edge of steel beneath the polite exterior. "When I found out about the other women, I confronted him. He had me fired from the gym, spread rumors about me being unstable, made sure I couldn't get work at any other fitness center in Austin." "That's awful, but what does it have to do with me?" "He's planning something. Ever since your party, he's been making calls, having meetings with people who don't look like his usual crowd. And he's been asking questions about you, your business, your finances, your background." This confirmed what Mike had told me earlier. "What kind of questions?" "Whether you have any criminal history, whether your business has any vulnerabilities, whether you have any enemies who might be willing to cause problems for you." I leaned back in the booth, processing this information. He's looking for leverage. Or he's looking for ways to discredit you. Connor doesn't like being embarrassed, and what you did at that party was about as public as humiliation gets. Good. He should be embarrassed. "You don't understand." Jessica leaned forward, her voice urgent. "Connor isn't just some gym owner having affairs. His business is a front for other activities, money laundering mostly, but also some loan sharking on the side. The kind of activities that attract dangerous people." The restaurant noise seemed to fade around us. "You're saying he's connected to organized crime?" I'm saying he's connected to people who don't solve problems through lawyers and divorce courts, people who solve problems through intimidation and violence. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll find more than you bargained for." I showed it to Jessica, whose face went pale. That's his style. Vague threats designed to make you paranoid. "How do you know so much about his business dealings?" "Because I was sleeping with him for 8 months. Because he trusted me with information he shouldn't have shared. Because I kept copies of things when I realized what kind of man he really was." She reached into her purse and pulled out a flash drive. Financial records, client lists, text messages with people whose names you'd recognize if you followed local crime reports. I stared at the small device. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because Connor needs to face consequences for what he's done. To me, to your family, to the other women he's manipulated. And because you're the first person with enough evidence and motivation to actually do something about it." "What makes you think I want to do something about it? Maybe I just want to get divorced and move on with my life." "Because you're here. Because you came to meet me instead of ignoring my message. Because men like you don't just walk away when they discover the truth." She pushed the flash drive across the table. "And because Connor won't let you walk away even if you wanted to." I picked up the device, feeling its weight, both physical and metaphorical. "What's on here?" "Enough to destroy his business and probably send him to prison. Financial records showing the money laundering, communications with known criminals, evidence of tax evasion, fraud, and a dozen other felonies." "Why haven't you gone to the police yourself?" "Because I'm a scorned ex-girlfriend with a grudge. You're a respected businessman with a legitimate grievance and documented evidence of his affair with your wife. Your credibility is better than mine." The logic was sound, but something about the situation felt off. "What do you get out of this?" "Justice, revenge, the satisfaction of watching Connor's world crumble the way he crumbled mine." She finished her martini and signaled for the check. "Plus, if he's in prison, he can't retaliate against me for talking to you." I pocketed the flash drive, already knowing I'd examine its contents despite my reservations about Jessica's motives. If this information is accurate, why hasn't law enforcement already caught him? Because he's careful. Because he has connections. Because the people he launders money for have an interest in keeping him operational. She stood up, leaving cash on the table. But that protection only extends so far. If enough heat gets focused on him, they'll cut him loose to save themselves. And you think I can generate that heat? I think a respected businessman with military credentials and a legitimate grievance can get law enforcement attention that a bitter ex-girlfriend can't. As she walked away, I sat alone in the booth, staring at the flash drive. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to focus on my divorce and custody battle without getting entangled in whatever criminal enterprises Connor might be involved in. But another part, the part that had spent 20 years in the military, that had built a successful business from nothing, that refused to be intimidated by threats, wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ayla. "Connor says you've been asking questions about him. Whatever you're planning, think about Emma first." I typed back, "I'm always thinking about Emma. Are you?" Her response came immediately. "Meet me tomorrow. We need to talk about our daughter's future." I pocketed the phone and headed for my car, the flash drive burning like a coal in my jacket. Tomorrow I'd deal with Ayla and whatever new manipulation she had planned. Tonight, I had some reading to do. The guest house behind Mike's property was small but functional, a converted garage with a kitchenette, bathroom, and enough space for a bed and desk. I'd set up my laptop on the small dining table, the flash drive Jessica had given me sitting beside it like a loaded weapon. I'd been staring at it for an hour, weighing the consequences of whatever information it contained. Once I opened those files, there would be no going back to ignorance. No pretending Connor was just a gym owner who'd had an affair with my wife. My phone rang, Emma calling from Ayla's phone. "Daddy, when are you coming home?" The question hit me harder than any revelation about Connor's criminal activities could. "I'm staying at Uncle Mike's for a while, sweetheart. Remember we talked about this? But I miss you, and Mommy's been crying a lot." I closed my eyes, hating that Emma was caught in the middle of this mess. "I miss you too. How about we have breakfast together tomorrow before school? Can we go to the pancake place?" "Absolutely. I'll pick you up at 7:30. "Daddy, are you and Mommy going to get back together?" The hope in her voice almost broke my resolve. For a moment, I considered the possibility. Taking Ayla back, raising Connor's child as my own, pretending the affair had never happened. It would be easier for Emma, simpler for everyone involved. But it would also be a lie, and I'd spent enough time living with lies. "I don't know, sweetheart. But no matter what happens between your mom and me, you'll always be my daughter, and I'll always love you." After she hung up, I sat in the quiet guest house, surrounded by the detritus of my collapsed marriage. Boxes of clothes, a few personal items, the laptop containing evidence of crimes I hadn't asked to discover. I inserted the flash drive. The files were meticulously organized. Jessica had clearly spent considerable time preparing this information. Financial records showing large cash deposits that didn't correspond to the gym's legitimate income. Text messages between Connor and individuals with criminal records. Photos of meetings in parking lots and back alleys. But it was the folder labeled "Other Women" that made my stomach turn. Jessica hadn't been exaggerating about Connor's pattern. The folder contained documentation of his affairs with 4 married women over the past 2 years, including detailed notes on their husbands' financial situations, custody arrangements, and potential vulnerabilities. Ayla's file was the most comprehensive. Connor had researched my military background, my business partnerships, my relationship with Emma. He'd documented my work schedule, my travel patterns, even my favorite restaurants. The level of detail was disturbing. This wasn't a casual affair, but a calculated campaign. Most chilling was a document titled "Contingency Plans," which outlined strategies for dealing with discovery of the affair. Option 1 involved discrediting me professionally through false accusations of business impropriety. Option 2 suggested using Emma as leverage to prevent me from pursuing legal action. Option 3 was simply labeled "escalation," with no further details. I was reading through financial records when my phone buzzed with another unknown number. "Check your email." The message that appeared in my inbox contained a single photo. Emma walking out of school that afternoon, taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. No caption, no explanation, just the image of my daughter captured without her knowledge. My hands shook as I called Mike. "They're watching Emma," I said without preamble. "Who's watching Emma?" "Connor, his associates, someone." I forwarded the photo to his phone. "I just received this." Mike's response was immediate and unprintable. "Where is she now?" "At home with Ayla. But Mike, if they're willing to photograph a 6-year-old, they're willing to do more than photograph her. You need to call the police." "And tell them what? That my wife's boyfriend sent me a picture of my daughter? That's not technically illegal." "The hell it isn't. That's stalking, intimidation, possibly criminal threatening." I was already grabbing my keys. "I'm going to get Emma." "Wait for me. Don't go alone." "There's no time. If they're escalating, then you need backup, not heroics. Give me 10 minutes. The drive to my former home felt endless. Every red light an eternity, every shadow a potential threat. I called Ayla's phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. The house was dark when I arrived, Ayla's car missing from the driveway. I used my key to enter, calling out for Emma as I searched the rooms. Empty. No signs of struggle, no indication of where they'd gone. My phone rang. Ayla's number. "Where's Emma?" I demanded. "She's safe, she's with me." "Where are you?" "Somewhere Connor can't find us." Her voice was shaky, frightened. "Kai, we need to meet. There are things about Connor I didn't know. Things he's been hiding from me." "What things?" Not over the phone. Meet me at Zilker Park, by the playground. Come alone. I stared at the phone, trying to process this new development. Ayla sounded genuinely scared, but I'd learned not to trust her emotional displays. Mike arrived as I was locking up the house. Any sign of them? Ayla called. She wants to meet at Zilker Park, says Connor can't find them there. It's a trap. Maybe. But Emma's with her, and that photo suggests Connor's people are watching my daughter. I can't ignore that. Mike studied my face in the porch light. You're going regardless of what I say. I'm going, but I could use backup. Then let's go get your daughter. As we drove toward the park, I thought about the contingency plans I'd found in Connor's files. Option 3, escalation. I had a feeling I was about to discover what that meant. Zilker Park at night was a different creature than the family-friendly space I knew from weekend outings with Emma. Shadows stretched between the trees, and the playground equipment loomed like skeletal remains in the dim lighting. I could see Ayla sitting on a bench near the swings, her figure small and hunched against the evening chill. Emma was nowhere visible. Where is she? I called out as I approached, Mike hanging back near the parking area as we'd agreed. She's safe, Ayla said, standing up. In the weak light she looked exhausted, her usual polished appearance replaced by rumpled clothes and tangled hair. I left her with my mom. Why all the secrecy? Why not just tell me that over the phone? Because Connor has been monitoring my calls. He has some kind of app on my phone that lets him track everything. My location, my messages, my conversations. She held up a different device. I had to buy a burner phone just to call you safely. This was a new development. How long has he been monitoring you? I don't know. Maybe months. I only discovered it yesterday when I found the app hidden in my settings. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering despite the mild temperature. Kai, I think I'm in danger. I think Emma might be in danger too. What changed? Yesterday you were defending him, telling me I didn't understand the situation. Yesterday I didn't know about the other women, or the money, or the people he's been meeting with. She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. I found these in his car. The photos inside made my stomach clench. Connor with various women, some I recognized from around town. Financial documents showing large cash transactions, and most disturbing surveillance photos of several families, including shots of our house, our daily routines, Emma's school. He's been planning this for months, Ayla whispered. The affair, the pregnancy, everything. I wasn't some woman he fell for. I was a target. Why you? Why our family? Your business, your military background, your reputation in the community. She pulled out another document. He's been researching ways to take over your company, using me and the baby as leverage. The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. He thought if you got pregnant, I'd be more likely to accept the situation to avoid scandal. And if I didn't, he could use custody of the baby to force a financial settlement. There's more. She handed me a recording device. I started recording our conversations after I found the monitoring app. Listen to this. Connor's voice emerged from the small speaker, discussing plans to discredit me professionally and personally. He talked about planting evidence of financial impropriety, arranging for false accusations of domestic violence, even suggesting ways to make me appear mentally unstable. The pregnancy wasn't an accident, his recorded voice continued. It was insurance. Once the kid is born, we'll have leverage over Dornell for the next 18 years. Child support, custody visits, constant access to his life and finances. I stopped the recording, feeling sick. How could you not see what he was doing? Because I was lonely, and he was charming, and he made me feel special. Tears ran down her cheeks. Because I'm an idiot who destroyed her marriage for a man who saw me as a business opportunity. Ayla, I know what I did to you, to us, to Emma. I know how much I've hurt everyone. But right now, Connor is the bigger threat. She grabbed my arm. He knows I found out about his plans. He's been calling and texting all day, getting more aggressive. I'm scared of what he might do. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Bring your wife to the gym. Come alone. You have 1 hour. I showed Ayla the message. Her face went white. He found us, she whispered. How? I don't know. Maybe the burner phone isn't as secure as I thought. Maybe he's been following us. She looked around the dark park with new paranoia. We need to leave. Now. As we hurried toward the parking area, I called Mike. Change of plans. Connor wants a meeting at his gym. Ayla and I need to... The call cut off. When I tried to redial, the phone showed no signal. He's jamming communications, Ayla said. He did the same thing when he confronted his last girlfriend's husband. What happened to that husband? He ended up in the hospital with a broken arm and a concussion. Connor claimed it was self-defense. We reached my car as another text arrived. 45 minutes. Don't disappoint me. I'm not taking you to meet him, I said, starting the engine. I'll drop you at your mother's house with Emma, then figure out how to handle Connor. He won't let this go, Kai. Even if you give him what he wants tonight, he'll keep coming back for more. Men like Connor don't stop until they're stopped. She was right, and I knew it. The files Jessica had given me, combined with what Ayla had discovered, painted a picture of a man who viewed other people as resources to be exploited. Paying him off, or avoiding confrontation, would only delay the inevitable. What are you suggesting? We end this. Tonight. Permanently. How? By giving him what he thinks he wants, then using it against him. She pulled out her phone, the one with Connor's monitoring app. He's been tracking everything I do, listening to all my conversations. Maybe it's time to let him hear something useful. As we drove through the Austin night, Ayla outlined a plan that was either brilliant or catastrophically stupid. Possibly both. But as I listened to her describe how we could turn Connor's own surveillance against him, I realized she might be the only person who understood him well enough to predict his moves. The question was whether I could trust her enough to bet our lives on that understanding. Connor's gym occupied a converted warehouse in an industrial district where legitimate businesses closed at 5 and questionable activities began after dark. The parking lot was nearly empty, except for Connor's BMW and 2 other vehicles I didn't recognize, a black SUV with tinted windows and a pickup truck that had seen better decades. Remember, Ayla whispered as we sat in my car, he thinks he's in control. Let him believe that until we're ready. The plan we'd developed was risky, but elegant in its simplicity. Connor had been monitoring Ayla's phone for months, recording conversations and tracking locations. What he didn't know was that Ayla had discovered his surveillance and was now prepared to use it against him. You sure about the recording app? I asked, checking my own phone one final time. It's been running since we left the park. Everything that happens in there will be captured and automatically uploaded to the cloud. She took a shaky breath. If something goes wrong... Nothing's going wrong. We stick to the plan, we get the evidence we need, and we let the police handle the rest. And if he doesn't cooperate? If he realizes what we're doing? I thought about the files Jessica had given me, about the surveillance photos of Emma, about the months of manipulation and lies. Then we improvise. The gym's front door was unlocked, which immediately set off warning bells in my mind. Connor was either very confident or very stupid, and nothing I'd learned about him suggested stupidity. We found him in the main workout area, standing near a weight bench with his arms crossed. He'd changed since the gender reveal party. Gone was the casual confidence, replaced by something harder and more dangerous. The 2 men flanking him looked like they'd stepped out of a crime movie, all muscle and menace. Kai, Ayla. Connor's voice echoed in the empty space. Thanks for coming, though I notice you're late. Traffic, I said, keeping my voice neutral while my eyes catalogued potential exits and weapons. Of course. He gestured to his companions. These are my business associates. They're here to ensure our conversation remains civil. What do you want, Connor? What I want is simple. I want you to disappear. He began pacing, his movements predatory. See, you've created a problem for me. All that drama at the party, the DNA test, the public humiliation. It's bad for business. People are asking questions I don't want answered. Then maybe you shouldn't have had an affair with my wife. Your wife came to me, Kai. She was lonely, neglected, looking for someone who could give her what she needed. I simply provided a service. Ayla flinched beside me, but she stayed quiet. We'd agreed she would let me handle the initial confrontation while her phone recorded everything. A service that included getting her pregnant? That was a bonus. See, a baby creates leverage, ongoing connection, guaranteed access to your life and finances for the next 18 years. Connor stopped pacing and faced me directly. But your little stunt with the DNA test complicated things. Now everyone knows the baby isn't yours, which means the leverage is compromised. So what's your solution? You're going to sign over 40% of your business to me. You're going to establish a trust fund for the baby with yourself as the trustee, but me as the beneficiary. And you're going to publicly reconcile with Ayla, which will restore her reputation and mine. I stared at him, genuinely amazed by his audacity. And if I refuse, then things get unpleasant. For you, for your business, for Emma. He nodded to one of his associates, who pulled out a tablet and showed me photos. Emma at school, Emma at the park, Emma walking with Ayla. Accidents happen, Kai, especially to people who don't cooperate. That was the moment I stopped thinking of this as a negotiation and started thinking of it as a war. You're threatening my daughter. I'm explaining consequences. There's a difference. Ayla stepped forward, her voice shaking with what sounded like fear, but was actually carefully controlled anger. Connor, please. This has gone too far. Can't we work something out without involving Emma? Oh, Ayla. Connor's smile was cold. Sweet, naive Ayla. Did you really think I didn't know about your little discovery yesterday? About the photos you found, the recordings you made? He knew about Ayla's investigation. I've been monitoring your phone for months, darling. Every call, every text, every photo you take, including the ones you took of my private documents. He gestured to his associates again. Which is why my friends here are going to make sure those photos disappear, along with any copies you might have made. The photos are already uploaded to cloud storage, Ayla said quickly. If anything happens to us, nothing's going to happen to you. Not if you cooperate. Connor moved closer, his voice dropping to an intimate whisper. You see, I've grown quite fond of you, Ayla. The baby you're carrying is mine, which makes you family. And I take care of family. By threatening them, by protecting them from their own poor decisions. He turned back to me. Your husband, on the other hand, is not family. He's a problem that needs solving. The larger of Connor's associates stepped forward, cracking his knuckles in a gesture that was probably meant to be intimidating. It was intimidating, but it was also exactly what we'd been hoping for. So here's what's going to happen, Connor continued. You're going to sign the papers my lawyer prepared, transferring business ownership and establishing the trust fund. Then you're going to leave Austin and start over somewhere else. Ayla and the baby will stay here with me, and everyone lives happily ever after. And Emma? Emma can visit her father on holidays. Supervised visits, of course. That was when I realized Connor had made a crucial mistake. He'd assumed that threatening my daughter would make me more compliant, more willing to negotiate. What he didn't understand was that threatening Emma had just eliminated any possibility of peaceful resolution. I need to see the papers, I said. Connor smiled, thinking he'd won. Of course, they're in my office upstairs. As we moved toward the stairs, Ayla caught my eye and nodded slightly. Phase 1 of our plan was complete. We had Connor's threats on recording, along with his admission of surveillance and intimidation. Phase 2 would be more dangerous, but it was the only way to ensure Emma's safety. Because men like Connor didn't honor agreements. They only understood power, and the only way to stop them was to take that power away. Permanently. Connor's office overlooked the gym floor through floor-to-ceiling windows, giving him a clear view of his domain. The space was decorated with expensive furniture and motivational posters that seemed obscene, given what I now knew about his business activities. The legal documents he'd prepared were thorough. I had to give him credit for that. Business transfer agreements, trust fund paperwork, even a prepared statement for me to sign admitting to mental health issues that had caused me to make false accusations. Very comprehensive, I said, flipping through the pages. How long have you been planning this? Since I first met Ayla. She told me so much about you, about your business, about your relationship with Emma. It was clear you had resources worth acquiring. So the affair was always about money? The affair was about opportunity. Ayla was lonely and vulnerable. You were successful and trusting. It seemed like a perfect match. Connor settled behind his desk, clearly enjoying what he saw as his moment of triumph. The pregnancy was just insurance. Ayla was standing near the window, her reflection visible in the glass. To Connor, she probably looked defeated, resigned to her fate. But I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hand hovered near her phone. What about the other women? I asked. Jessica mentioned you'd done this before. Jessica. Connor's expression darkened. Bitter ex-girlfriend with an overactive imagination. You shouldn't believe everything a scorned woman tells you. So you're denying the affairs with married women? The pattern of targeting families with assets? I'm denying that it's any of your business. He gestured to the papers. Sign the documents, Kai. Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. I picked up the pen he'd provided, then set it down again. I have one question first. What? How did you know we'd be at Zilker Park tonight? Connor's smile faltered slightly. What do you mean? Ayla called me from a burner phone. We met at a location we'd never discussed before, at a time we arranged spontaneously. Yet somehow you knew exactly where to find us. I stood up, moving away from the desk. How is that possible? I have resources. You have a tracking device on my car. I discovered it during our drive to the gym, a small magnetic unit attached to the undercarriage. Which means you've been monitoring my movements for weeks, maybe months. Kai. Ayla started to speak, but I held up a hand. It's okay, Ayla. I know. I turned back to Connor. See, here's what I think happened. I think you've been planning this confrontation since the gender reveal party. I think you wanted me here, wanted this meeting, because you need to demonstrate control to your business associates. Connor's associates had followed us upstairs and now stood near the door, blocking our exit. But I'd noticed something they probably hadn't. The office had a second door leading to a back stairwell. You're overthinking this, Connor said, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. Am I? Because I've been doing some research of my own. Turns out you owe money to some very unpleasant people, money you don't have, money you were planning to get by taking over my business. You don't know what you're talking about. I know you've been laundering money through the gym. I know you've been running loan sharking operations. I know the people you work for are getting impatient with your debts. I pulled out my phone, showing him a photo from Jessica's files. I also know they don't appreciate employees who draw unnecessary attention to their operations. Connor's face had gone pale. Where did you get that? From someone who knows you better than you think, someone who's been documenting your activities for months. I gestured to Ayla. Show him. Ayla pulled out her phone, not the monitored one Connor knew about, but a second device we'd prepared earlier. The screen displayed a live video feed that was being broadcast to multiple social media platforms and news outlets. Smile, Connor. You're live on the internet. Everything he'd said, every threat he'd made, every admission of criminal activity, it was all being broadcast in real time to thousands of viewers. You recorded this whole conversation? We recorded everything. The threats against Emma, the admission of surveillance, the extortion attempt, all of it. I moved toward the back door, Ayla following, and we've already forwarded copies to the FBI, the Austin Police Department, and several investigative journalists. Connor lunged for his desk drawer, probably reaching for a weapon, but his associates grabbed him. "Boss, we need to go, now." The larger man was already heading for the stairs. "If this is being broadcast, the people you work for are probably watching right now," I said. "How do you think they'll react to this kind of exposure?" Connor's face twisted with rage and fear. "You have no idea what you've done. These people don't forgive, they don't forget." "Then you better hope they catch you before the police do." We made it to the back stairwell as Connor's world collapsed behind us. Through the office windows, I could see his associates abandoning him, fleeing toward their vehicles. Connor himself was frantically trying to shut down the broadcast, not realizing that it was being streamed from multiple sources. "Is it over?" Ayla asked as we reached the parking lot. "The immediate threat is over. Connor's finished. His business associates will cut ties to avoid exposure, and law enforcement will have enough evidence to put him away for years. And Emma? Emma's safe. Connor won't be threatening anyone for a long time." As we drove away from the gym, sirens wailing in the distance, I thought about the chain of events that had led to this moment, the gender reveal party that had exposed the affair, the investigation that had revealed Connor's criminal activities, the confrontation that had ended with his public downfall. "What happens now?" Ayla asked. "Now we deal with the aftermath, the divorce, the custody arrangements, the media attention." I glanced at her. "And we figure out how to co-parent a child that isn't mine while protecting Emma from the fallout." "I know I don't deserve forgiveness." "You're right. You don't. But Emma deserves parents who can work together despite their history. So, we'll find a way to make that happen." As we drove through the Austin night, heading toward Emma and whatever future awaited us, I realized that revenge wasn't always about destruction. Sometimes it was about justice. Sometimes it was about protection. And sometimes it was about ensuring that the people who threatened your family faced consequences for their actions. Connor had gambled everything on his ability to intimidate and manipulate. Tonight, he'd learned that some people don't intimidate easily, and some games have consequences the players never see coming. 6 months later, I stood in the playground at Zilker Park, watching Emma navigate the monkey bars with the determined concentration she brought to every challenge. The same park where Ayla and I had planned Connor's downfall had become a regular weekend destination for father-daughter time. Connor was serving 18 months in federal prison for money laundering, with additional charges pending for extortion and criminal threatening. His gym had been seized as part of the investigation, and his former associates had vanished into whatever shadows such people inhabit when their operations are exposed. Ayla had given birth to a son she named David. I'd been present for the birth, not as a father, but as Emma's dad, there to support my daughter as she met her half-brother. The baby looked like Connor, which eliminated any lingering questions about paternity. The divorce had been finalized with minimal drama, largely because Ayla's affair and Connor's criminal activities had left her with little leverage. I'd retained primary custody of Emma, while Ayla had visitation rights and a modest settlement that would help her rebuild her life. "Daddy, watch this!" Emma called out, attempting to skip a rung on the monkey bars. "I'm watching, sweetheart. Be careful." She made it across successfully, then ran to the slide with the boundless energy of childhood. Watching her play, it was easy to forget the chaos that had surrounded her just months earlier. Children were resilient in ways adults rarely appreciated. My phone buzzed with a text from Mike. "Drinks later? I want to hear about the new security contract." The business had not only survived the scandal but had actually grown. Apparently, successfully exposing a criminal conspiracy was good for one's reputation in the security industry. I'd hired 2 additional employees and was considering expanding into corporate consulting. "Mr. Dornell?" I turned to find a woman approaching, mid-30s with professional attire and a press badge. "I'm Sarah Chen from the Austin American-Statesman. I'm working on a follow-up story about the Connor Blackwell case. Could I ask you a few questions?" "I think I've said everything I need to say about that situation." "Actually, I wanted to ask about something else. We've been investigating other cases involving similar patterns. Married couples targeted by individuals seeking financial gain through manipulation and extortion. Your case seems to be part of a larger trend." That was interesting. "How many other cases?" "At least 6 in the Austin area over the past 3 years. Possibly more." She pulled out a notebook. "The FBI thinks there might be an organized network involved, with Connor as just one operator in a larger scheme. I thought about Jessica's files, about the documentation of Connor's activities, about the criminal associates who disappeared so quickly when things went wrong. What do you need from me?" "Just confirmation of some details, and perhaps your perspective on how these predators select their targets." She glanced toward Emma, who was now climbing the rope ladder. "Also, how families can protect themselves from this kind of manipulation." We talked for 20 minutes, covering the warning signs I'd missed, the investigation techniques that had proven effective, and the importance of trusting instincts when something felt wrong. By the time she left, I felt like I'd contributed something useful to protecting other families from similar experiences. "Who was that lady?" Emma asked when she returned from the playground. "A reporter writing a story about bad people who try to hurt families." "Like Connor?" "Like Connor." Emma considered this with the seriousness she brought to important topics. "Are there more bad people like him?" "Some. But there are also good people who work to stop them. Police officers, lawyers, judges, reporters like that lady." "And daddies who protect their daughters?" "Especially daddies who protect their daughters." As we walked back to the car, Emma chattering about her plans for the rest of the weekend, I reflected on how much had changed since that disastrous gender reveal party. The marriage was over, but Emma was safe and thriving. Connor was facing justice, and his criminal network was under investigation. Ayla was learning to be a single mother while rebuilding her life and reputation. None of it had been easy, and none of it had happened the way I'd expected when I first discovered the affair. But sometimes, life doesn't offer clean solutions or happy endings. Sometimes the best you can do is protect the people you love and ensure that those who threaten them face appropriate consequences. My phone buzzed with another message, this one from an unknown number. "Thank you for what you did. Connor hurt my family too, but now we have justice. A grateful father." I showed the message to Emma, who was now buckled into her car seat. "What does that mean, Daddy?" "It means, sometimes, when you do the right thing, it helps more people than you realize." "Is that why you stopped Connor? To help other people?" "I stopped Connor to protect you, but I'm glad it helped other people too." As we drove home through the Austin afternoon, I thought about the chain of events that had brought us to this point. The gender reveal party that had exposed the truth. The investigation that had revealed the scope of